Perfect Circle, that's from R.E.M. And we're here tonight with Michael from R.E.M. on Music View.
Hoo-ha.
Hoo-ha. I thought the album came out, it's a great album, but I think it came out sounding a bit sort of, the moodier side of the band came out on the record, on the LP, as opposed to what you are live and as opposed to your earlier work. Would you disagree with that statement? Or?
No, not at all. A lot of the songs are perhaps a little bit emotion-packed, or at least for me they are. I don't know. We kind of leave ourselves open to interpretation by whoever the listener is. For me, a lot of the songs are kind of sad.
Right, because live you see you, and it's a very upbeat experience, but the album isn't all smiles.
Yeah, well, live there's this kind of, there's a energy level that we reach, you know, on a really good night, and I don't know, the stage thing, usually whenever I get up there, and I know Peter feels the same way, and Mike and Bill too, but just being on stage is such an absurd thing to do, and you know, the whole...
What do you mean?
Well, just the whole thing about being in a band is so ridiculous, and I get up there and you know, I kind of realize what I'm doing, it's kind of silly, and so...
Instead of being bogged down,
it makes me laugh.
Most of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a... I think on the ladder of important things in this world, being in a rock band is probably, you know, a lower rung. But then again, being Secretary of State is probably way down there too, you know, just below dishwashing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the songs do have a tendency to get maybe a little bit too depressing, I don't know. I think Peter's guitar is fairly uplifting, and there are some songs on the record that are, you know, pretty uplifting also, lyrically, or whatever.
Well, yeah. The album really brings out the bass playing, the mix anyway. I mean, in a way that I never heard it on your previous recordings and never heard it live.
Yeah, that was something really nice about doing the album. With the EP, we recorded it in 2 days, and with the album, we had almost 2 weeks to work on it. So we were able to work with levels, work with a lot of the subtleties that get lost in the live show, and add in stuff like the piano and the vibraphone and, you know, pots and pans and all that stuff, that the Gregorian chant, background vocals, that stuff that we can't really pull off live and wouldn't want to try.
And yet you weren't working on it long enough that you were throwing stuff in there that didn't really belong.
No, it wasn't, you know, like Fleetwood Mac Tusk or anything. We banged it out pretty fast, I guess. I think 2 weeks for an album is pretty fast in the studio. I don't know.
Yeah. But I imagine it's the most time you've ever had to record something.
Yeah, that was a real luxury. I can see us doing the next, whatever project we do, the next one, much faster than that, because I think we've kind of learned a little bit about the studio, and now we have a little bit clearer idea of how to use what the studio has to offer without overdoing it. I think a lot of bands these days are real overproduced and should perhaps simplify themselves a little bit.
The whole feel of the record, from sort of the you know, the blue tinted pictures on the back to the cover art and everything, is sort of, I think, very melancholy. As I mentioned to you before, sort of very early springish. I almost thought.
Yeah.
And murmur, certainly.
Murmur's one of the 6 easiest words in the English language to say. I think it comes right after mama, which is probably why it was picked.
Is there anything more to be said about that? About murmur as a title?
It's got nice implications, I guess. I was kind of terrified that some really smart critic was going to make this whole case against, you know, the indecipherable vocals and all that stuff. And, but that's not how it was intended. I just think it's a nice word.
I didn't think. I know Naomi disagrees with this, but I didn't think the vocals were particularly indecipherable. I
think they're a lot clearer on the album than they were on. Well, certainly on the single, because that was just a complete trash out. But as far as how
complete trash out.
Well, as far as how the sound came across, it was a really good recording, and it was a good mix on Mitch's part. But when we went to pressing it, it was pressed really weird, and so that's where all that kind of cramps, Taft Falco, that just real muddy, washy sound that the single has. And on the EP,
EP is sort of the other end of things, isn't it?
we mix the vocals down a whole lot on the EP just because none of us were real sure of them, and again, we did it so fast. And this time, I think they're brought up kind of a little bit more on the record, on the album, than on the other stuff. Point? I don't know.
Another song. Okay, how about Pilgrimage?
Great.
Anything you'd like to say about it?
Yeah, I guess I could perhaps say that there, to me anyway, there are 3 points of view in that song. Which one the singer is taking, I'm not quite sure of yet, but they're all there. How's that?
Okay, the band's been together about 3 years, is that right?
Yeah, 3 years and 2 weeks.
3 years and 2 weeks. And I guess you've been affiliated major label-wise about a year and a half, or is it a little more than that?
I don't remember. It's been over a year.
Right, whatever. You said something before about being in a band being a silly sort of thing and not on the list of priorities or whatever.
Yeah, but, on the other hand, list of priority occupation, really everything that you can think of is kind of absurd.
Right, and it's making you money and it's keeping you fed, so it's okay as an occupation. It serves you well. Since getting involved more with the higher end of business, say the higher echelon, as opposed to say a van, sleeping in a van type of operation, how has your perspective changed?
Not very much, really. I realize there's a lot of business to the music business. There's a whole lot more than I would have ever imagined. It's kind of funny when I think of someone like Lux Interior and Ivy Rawshaw having to go into an office and sit there for 3 hours and mull over contracts and things, but those things have to be done. Fortunately, we've got Jefferson, who takes care of most of that stuff, and we can pretty much be left to write the songs and perform. We don't have to worry about that so far. That's about the only real difference, except that perhaps we're playing to more audiences now that know the songs, and that makes it nicer for us. It's always good to get a reaction. That was the thing in Detroit. They weren't even bothering to throw things at us, which would have been better than having them just stand there. They had gone to see the English Beat, and they didn't want to have a thing to do with us. And any kind of reaction, even a negative one, is better than nothing at all. In Canada, at least, they threw things at us, and they were pretty good targets too. We threw them back and kind of kept this nice rapport going with apples and cups and things like that between us and the audience. But unfortunately, we weren't as good of hits as they were. So,
why do you think it is that your particular vision of pop music is perceived as being so unique?
Beats me. I mean, we're not doing anything really new. We're not. I don't think we're not stretching the boundaries of music. I don't think forging paths for generations to follow. I don't know.
It seems
we mean what we do. I guess that is sometimes kind of rare. And that, I'm very sincere in saying that. It might sound kind of ridiculous and self-proclaimed, but we really do mean what we're doing.
Well, that's what I was going to say next, is just that your music sounds very honest, and hearing honest music makes me as a listener aware of the fact that so many bands aren't honest.
Yeah, it's very possible that very honesty would be the thing that would turn a lot of people away from listening to the music, because it's just like liking a person individually or not liking them. And I guess it's kind of that way, except you're dealing with 4 people as a group instead.
And the thing that's bothered me about some of the press about the band is they will want to, even your biggest supporters for years, have wanted to relate you to, say, 60s influences or past influences. And yes, the influences are there, but, again, it takes away from the fact that basically what you're doing is honest music. And people try to relate you too much to a pop tradition or to this is American pop, DB's, bongos, R.E.M, and it's not really like that. I think you just stand on your own and people should perceive it as that.
I don't know. To my mind, I've never listened to '60s music, and I've never heard the Byrds, and I can say that honestly. I've never put a Beatles record on the turntable. I was 7 years old when all that stuff was going on, so that really doesn't have very much to do with me. Peter, on the other hand, has listened to all that and has followed music for a long time, but that he's only one out of four of us. I think any rock band today can't deny having some kind of 60s influence. I mean, the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, it just goes back and back. We're certainly not a retro band, I don't think.
Right, and it seems that when people talk about you, they often talk about you in the sense just by the fact that you're playing guitar pop.
Birds of the 80s.
Right, people are relating you to some sort of nostalgia or retro thing, and that seems so unfair when all you're doing is being honest.
Well, I guess they need some kind of target, to some kind of comparison to make, so that whoever is reading the article or whoever they're talking to or what have you has maybe a clear idea of what they're talking about. I have nothing against it, that's their opinion, and that's great. I don't know what, and we out of trying to find something to call the music. 8 months or 9 months ago, we started telling people that it was folk rock with a hyphen, and the reason that we said that is because folk rock 9 months ago meant absolutely nothing. It had no label at all. There's no one had done anything like that. It's just a kind of innocuous term. More recently, it seems like there's been a real kind of upheaval of that actual style of music, the Bob Dylan, John Baez, Richard and Linda Thompson type stuff has really come back around, and it seems like it's making a big comeback. So I guess we're gonna have to find a different term to vaguely label ourselves as. I don't know what it will be.
If you're looking for labels, as you said, sometimes they're a necessity. Right.
Well, people always ask, what kind of music do you play? What do you say? Punk? No. Well, folk rock, and that just thoroughly confuses them. They don't have any idea what you're talking about.
It's odd, this whole thing in the last, year, the way the whole, quote, new wave has boomed into some sort of commercial success, and I guess it is really a band like R.E.M. can really take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the boom to success with, new wave, if you will, has a lot to do with the larger record companies and the ones that have been these huge manatee sea cows for so long have been harpooned just one time too many, and just like the rest of the economy, they're going down real fast, and they're just kind of grabbing at straws right now, and putting a lot of money into someone like Missing Persons or something like that. I don't think that can last too long.
And the only time it gets frustrating is when you realize that maybe people can't tell the difference between Missing Persons and R.E.M.
I certainly wouldn't want to be categorized with someone like that. I haven't seen the band or the record.
You'll look down a new wave playlist, or you'll meet somebody and say, "Well, I've been buying new wave records, Missing Persons, English Beat, R.E.M."
Right? Yeah. I'd rather not.
As if any of those people actually had anything to do with each other.
I'm certainly never going to wear a plastic breastplate. Certainly not on stage, maybe elsewhere. Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, that band seems to me like, the Slim Whitman of rock and roll, except Slim Whitman's much better. He's been around for years. It just took television to get him famous.
But what we were getting at is that R.E.M., despite that ignorance, can definitely use this to their advantage, can't they?
Yeah, I suppose. Although we're not consciously using it to our advantage, we're certainly not grouping ourselves in with people like that when we try to book dates or when we talk to people about what we're doing. I don't think I've honestly used the term new wave in 4 years. It died with the rich kids, if it ever lived at all. And a friend of mine said the other day, I think I liked it a lot better before new wave. We were walking down the street, and there were these people, just dressed to the nines. Just ridiculous. Clubs with fake brick, with fake graffiti spray painted on them, and stripes and leopard skin, and who needs it?
The irony being that it's they're buying your records, or hopefully will buy your records.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I mean, that's why I'm saying it is very ironic.
Yeah. I always like to. I hate seeing people inside of places with sunglasses on, and so unless they've got an eye problem or they're blind, and so I always tell people to take their sunglasses off whenever, which doesn't go over too well in some places. I think we're getting way off the point here.
Yeah, I think
I am. I think you're probably
helping you along. I think we're also running out of time. Final questions. What's been a comfortable part of the country for R.E.M?
Comfortable?
Yeah. I mean, you've been around the country, what, about 3 times now?
Yeah, New York has pretty good sofas. Minneapolis. I like Minneapolis a whole lot. I think it's a really great place. It has nothing to do with Mary Tyler Moore.
Isn't it funny? It's one of those, Minneapolis being one of those places you'll always associate with a TV image. The way the Korean War will always be associated with MASH, being at Minneapolis, right? And
nobody walks around Minneapolis throwing their hats up in the air on the sidewalk. It just doesn't happen.
And I guess Athens. Are you from Athens? Is the band itself from Athens?
We all moved there to go to school.
Right. We'll always have its own associations with bands, with a scene. I mean, people will think of there being a rock scene in Athens before they will start thinking of it, the town, for any other reasons. At least some people.
Yeah, I guess so. Except for football fans.
That's true.
We're not going to talk about what they think of.
Is that a valid way to think about Athens?
No, that's one small part of what is a town. I mean, that's something that probably 95% of the people that live there don't know a thing about, except that they see these people walking around that don't look like exactly what they think college students are supposed to look like. Perhaps.
All right.
It's a great statement to end with.
Right. I've got one more quick question. It's out of the blue, but I'm going to ask you about the lyrics to Catapult. Mm-hmm. What is that about? Anything particular?
Oh God, I really can't say. It's got a real definite meaning for me, and it's got a real definite separate meaning for Peter and for the other guys in the band. But it's really up for grabs. You tell me. What is it about?
Well, I guess we'll leave that up to everyone's individual choice. This has been Music View for the last half hour, and we've been here with Michael Stipe of R.E.M. I'm Tim Sommer, and good night.